What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm just gonna get right to it. In this video, we're gonna be talking about the Toney situation with the Rolly Romero fight, as well as I'm gonna give you guys a breakdown, a preview, and a prediction of the upcoming Lomachenko versus Haney fight this weekend. Now, as far as the Toney situation is concerned, you know, he from a sporting perspective, what he did was wrong. No doubt about it. And I feel bad for the fighter. I forget his name. Please excuse me. But I feel bad for the man. He, for those of you that don't know, there was a WBA super lightweight title fight with Rolly Romero and a gentleman from South America, I believe, and it was clearly a competitive fight. The gentleman from South America was definitely winning, in my opinion, and Toney Weeks, they both dropped each other, and Toney Weeks stopped it for no apparent reason. As a matter of fact, I believe he was the one that was throwing punches when Toney Weeks stopped it. Neither fighter seemed hurt or anything. It was a competitive fight. Both fighters were well matched. It wasn't the most exciting fight by any means, but it was just very odd. And again, from a sporting perspective, what happened was very wrong. And I hope the network or the promoter somehow, some way tries or does make it up to the gentleman from South America who was wronged. However, in my opinion, and in reality, there was nothing wrong. Yeah, from a sporting perspective, it was wrong. But this is what boxing fans have to understand. Boxing is a circus. It's the same thing as a circus, all right? And as the ring master, in this case, the promoter or and when I say ring master, I mean the businessman behind it all, right? And before I go any further, you know, this is what I have to point out, and this is what I love about boxing. When you are the one that finances the show or the circus or what have you, you call all the shots. It's the ultimate like capitalistic venture, boxing, from a business perspective. It's capitalistic to the T. Like, hey, as long as you're the one that's putting up the money for this shit, you get to do whatever you want. Think about it. In boxing, the promoters are the ones that pay the referees. In boxing, the promoters are the ones that have a say in who refs the fight, and they're the ones that pay the ref. Okay? When you're the ringmaster, it's your show. And you call the shots, you get to do whatever you want. So from like a businessman's perspective, in that sense, it's a very attractive thing to go into, because as long as you're the one that's putting up the money, and of course, many times in reality, the network is the promoter and the ringmaster, right? Because that's where the money is really coming from. And in this situation, it was obvious, like the network as well as the promoter, obviously, but the network more importantly, because that's who the real ringmaster is in this situation, is looking to match up Rolly Romero in the future with some in really big fights that are going to make a lot of money, such as Ryan Garcia. They're going to do Rolly Romero versus Ryan Garcia for the World Championship of the World. You know how fucking big that's going to be? Ryan just finished doing almost 1 million buys with Tank Davis, and that was his first pay-per-view. With Rolly, it's going to do similar numbers, maybe a little lower. Regardless, it's going to make a lot of fucking money. they could also do other things like a Tank Davis rematch for the real 140-pound belt that Romero apparently now has. You know, again, a lot of money. These are big fights. With the South American gentlemen, they weren't going to be able to make that much money off of them like they are with Rolly Romero with the WBA title. Let's be real. The network has this in plan for the future, so they had to make sure that, you know, the right man won. And this is all just my opinion, of course. Tony Weeks, being the experienced referee that he is, he knows what he's got to do. Look, I'm not saying there was any money thrown around his way or anything like that, but at the end of the day, it's the promoter that pays and writes the check to the referee. It's the promoter that hires everybody. So Tony Weeks knows that, hey, if I want to get hired again, or if how do you think he got to be one of the most popular referees that consistently gets big fights? Because he does what the promoters want him to do. The promoters know that they can rely on him to protect their assets. And look, from a business perspective, what happened is not wrong. At the end of the day, Showtime is the one that's putting up the money for this shit. They need the guy that they need to win. They can't have the South American guy winning. And there's nothing wrong with that in reality, because they are paying for this. They are the one it's because of them that this is all happening in the first place. People have to understand this. And again, yes, from a sporting perspective, it was wrong. But you stop looking at this like it's a sport, because it's not. The last time I checked, a sport has a competitive archetype, okay? Boxing does not. Again, boxing is the circus. It's a circus. And the ringmaster is the network or the promoter. Most of the time, it's the network. So look at boxing like you look at the WWE or the circus. Because that's what it is. It's not amateur boxing, you could say, is a sport. That's a sport. You know, if you're an amateur boxer, you sign up for a tournament, you go into a bracket, and the winner moves on to the next round of the tournament. Professional boxing is a circus. The ringmaster signs fighters or hires them on a per fight basis and then offers them a matchup, and they take it or they don't take it. And they're looking to put on a show for the people and make profit off of it. That's all it is. It's entertainment. It's the circus. So don't look at boxing like how you look at the NBA or the NFL or even the UFC or any other sport like tennis. Do not look, or even amateur boxing. Don't look at professional boxing like any of these other sports, because professional boxing does not have a competitive archetype, and all these sanctioning bodies are bullshit. Shout out to all of them, by the way, because we do need them at the end of the day, and they do serve a purpose, you know, which is they help with the marketing and the building up of an up-and-comer fighter that we don't know the name of yet. But once these fighters reach a certain level, they no longer need a world title to sell fights. You know, at the end of the day, having them is always nice, you know. But for example, Felix Trinidad versus Ricardo Mayorga did not need to be for a world title to be a successful pay-per-view, because Trinidad was already a future Hall of Famer and a legend by that time. And Mayorga was already a former undisputed former world champion when they both fought each other. But for young fighters that haven't had the big fights, it's important to have a world title. And if you notice, you only get them if you're signed to a big promoter, because the big promoter is the one that pays the sanction body, which is basically a company, to have them sanction your fights and give you a belt. It doesn't matter how good you are, if you don't have a promoter or somebody paying set fees to a company that we call a sanctioning body, you don't get a world title or any belt for that matter. You don't get a regional belt, intercontinental, NAB, nothing. You need to pay fees in order to even be eligible and to get ranked. It's not a sport. You have to understand this. Stop looking at professional boxing like fucking tennis, man. You guys are fucking making me mad. You guys are fucking stupid, man. It's not a fucking sport. So anyway, let's move on to the Lomachenko and Devin Haney fight. Before I go on any further, I just want to say, you know, Lomachenko, one of the best fighters of this generation. Two-time Olympic gold medalist. I used to value gold medals more than world titles, but I realize now that the Olympics is just as corrupt as, no. I'm gonna start over. All right, so Lomachenko, one of the best fighters of his generation. He's about 5'6". You know, he fought for a world title in his second pro fight. He lost to Orlando Salido in what turned out to be a very competitive fight. But as we all know, Orlando Salido came in heavy, did not make weight for that fight, wasn't eligible to win the world title in that fight because of that, and was also fighting a very dirty fight considering the fact that he hit Lomachenko with a lot of low blows, and even then, at the end of the fight, Lomachenko was the one backing him up and was the aggressor and was coming on strong. It was a competitive fight, but he lost. But it was after that fight when I knew that this guy's the real deal. Before the Orlando Salido fight, I was like, who the hell does this guy think he is, thinking he's gonna be winning a world title, you know, on his second or third pro fight. You know, he's disrespecting the game, blah, blah, blah. But after the Orlando fight, even though he lost, he showed me who he really is. And I knew that after that, he was gonna become a legend in the sport fast. And that's exactly what ended up happening. He, I believe, fought Gary Russell in his very next fight for the WBO featherweight world championship, and swept him easy. Won a lopsided decision, and you know, just took on one world-class opponent after another. When we talk about guys like Lomachenko, those are the guys that, you know, one of the few fighters that approach professional boxing the same way they approached amateur boxing. Which, if you notice, Lomachenko, guys like Lomachenko and Manny Pacquiao, every time they fight, it's always against the best available opposition. Every single time. You never see them in a tune-up fight or a showcase fight, regardless if they're coming off of a win or a loss. You understand? So let's look at this resume. Gary Russell, immediately after his loss to Orlando Salido. You got guys like Nicholas Walters, Jason Sosa, Guillermo Rigondeaux, Jorge Linares. This is insane. In under 10 fights, he already fought more real fights than your average modern day fighter fights at the end has under their belt at the end of their career. You know, because at the end of the day, most fighters fight 20 showcase fights before they fight a real fight. This guy Lomachenko started fighting real fights off the rip, just like it's amateur, as if it's amateur boxing. You know. So the trend continues. Now it's Devin Haney for the undisputed lightweight championship. And Lomachenko has so many layers and gears to his game. He's smart. He's athletic. He's powerful. But he's fighting way above his weight, natural weight. Because he's naturally a featherweight. And he's the older fighter. And especially in those weight classes, you'd rather be 25 than 35, right? Especially as a lightweight, you know. In other weight classes, it's different, you know. I could definitely talk and speak for myself that, you know, I'm 34 right now, and this version of me would have definitely beaten the living shit out of the 25-year-old version of me, you know. And for those of you that don't know, I box as an amateur. I have been doing so since 2009. Don't have too many fights under my belt, but I've been doing it for a long time. I got 6 fights, 6 amateur fights under my belt. The last time was last April in Catania, Puerto Rico. I'm currently training, and we'll be having another one shortly. Most likely in the same venue in Catania. I train with at Caimito Boxing Gym with the great Freddie Trinidad, who's Felix Trinidad's uncle. I'll go more into that in another video, but I got way off topic. But anyway, yeah, I would rather be 25 than 35, okay, as a lightweight, generally speaking. But, you know, so Lomachenko's got the age disadvantage and the size disadvantage in this fight. But, again, he's the more experienced fighter, the more accomplished fighter, and I think overall a better fighter, you know, pound for pound. Now, let's go on to Devin Haney. Devin Haney is about 5'11", maybe. Big, tall, lightweight. Doesn't have much punching power. Doesn't have many great wins. His best win is probably against George Kambosos for the undisputed championship. I'm not saying George is all that, but you got to give credit where credit is due, and I feel like people aren't when it comes to George. I'm not saying he's exactly Floyd Mayweather, but he did beat Teofimo Lopez, and Teofimo Lopez was at the time the best lightweight in the world. So let's give credit where credit is due. So, you know, beating George Kambosos, especially at the time, is a really good win. And so I definitely would say that's probably his best win. It's not Jorge Linares, okay? Jorge Linares got destroyed by Antonio DeMarco in fantastic fashion and brutal fashion back in 2011, 2012 for the WBC lightweight title. Like, give me a break. This guy has been cashed out and recycled billion fucking times. Went over to Japan, rebuilt his career, came back here to fight Lomachenko, got destroyed again. But people were acting like he was like one of the best in the world and in his prime, which is not true. Dude, Jorge Linares was never that good, especially in 2018, which was maybe about 5 years past his prime already at that point. Give me a fucking break, man. This guy got brutally stopped multiple times 10 years before that, man. Let's use some fucking common sense. So, George Kambosos, you know, that's probably his best win. Devin Haney, when he fights, I don't even watch his fights because they all suck, but when he fights, he reminds me of a 4-year-old Floyd Mayweather or a 38-year-old Floyd Mayweather, like the one that fought Andre Berto and Canelo, like that guy. He reminds me, he fights like a old Floyd Mayweather. He's looking the pot shot, basically, with 1 or 2 shots at a time and skirt. And just do the same thing over again. And just win a unanimous decision. He uses the jab really well. That's one of his favorite punches. He's got decent hand speed. And he's got good feet. So he likes to like, pop, and then move. Or pop, pop, move, you know? He doesn't, yeah, that's all he does. But he doesn't have much power. But at this weight class, he's just strong enough and big because of how big he is to be able to keep people from just rushing in on him, you know? He's just strong enough with his punches. And it's because of his weight and the size, you know? Otherwise, this guy doesn't seem like he can really punch that hard. So yeah, so on to the prediction. I think, damn, I've been talking for over 20 minutes already. Wow. So yeah, I'm going with Lomachenko. I think Lomachenko's gonna win. I can never doubt this guy going into any fight, man. I really can't, unless if he gives me a good reason. I mean, a reason to, and he hasn't so far. I went against him in the Nakatani fight a year or 2 ago. He proved, man. Granted, that wasn't the best version of, that was the worst version of Nakatani, but he wasn't a good fighter in that fight, but he was still a very dangerous fighter in that fight. Lomachenko, one of the all-time greats, one of the best in this generation. He just has so many levels and gears to his game. I believe he's going to find a way to get on the inside and work Devin. He's going to find a way to adapt and dissect Devin. So I'm going with a Lomachenko win. Whether he stops him or not, I can't say. Granted, if Devin wins, I won't be surprised. But my pick is definitely Lomachenko. I can't go against this guy in a fight. Come on, man. I can't. I did one time and I was wrong. I'm going back to going for him, bro. I'm not gonna be doubting this fucking machine of a fighter until he gives me a definitive reason to do so. You know, even at lightweight. So there you have it, folks. Thank you for watching my videos. We will be going on a field trip soon. I know you guys like those. I got one set up. We're gonna be doing videos coming up for the Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez fight, as well as the Jake Paul and Nate Diaz fight. I think there will be 2 separate videos. So I think for one of those, I think we'll do the field trip where we, cover some history and we break down some boxing at the same time in one video. Mix in a little history sometimes, So there you go. Peace out.